All right, I will be calling the meeting to order at 5 p.m. Currently, Trustee Addison and Trustee Garrison are absent. Public comment on closed session items. At this time, any person may address the board on any closed session item or any item not listed on the agenda pursuant to the Brown Act. The board cannot consider issues or take action on requests during the comment period. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. I don't see any. Closed session, public employee performance evaluation, conference with labor negotiators, tax CSEA unrepresented management, and that is all. We will go to closed session at 5 p.m. 5:01 p.m. Sure. If we may please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I get an approval of the agenda order? Oh, the board reserves the right to change the order in which the agenda items are discussed and or acted upon at this meeting, subject to the further action by the board. The agenda for this meeting is to be approved as presented. Items may be added to this agenda for discussion or action only as permitted by the Brown Act.
Move to approve the
second.
agenda.
All right, I have a motion by trustee Garrison and a second from trustee Candelaria Orr for the approval of the agenda order. Preferential?
Sorry.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is absent. Public comment on consent and non-agenda items. The public may address the board at any consent or non-agenda item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, during the period the board cannot consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. Time is limited to 3 minutes per person per item, 20 minutes per topic. If you have public comment, please stand next to the podium. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to closed session, reportable action taken. There is no reportable, no action that's, no
action taken.
no action taken.
Reportable or not?
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Consent calendar. The Cloverdale Unified School District Board of Trustees utilizes a consent calendar for items that require the approval of the board, but are of routine in nature. They act upon these items in one vote. Any member may remove an item for additional questions. Board members receive their agendas and backup materials 7 days in advance of our meetings. They have the opportunity to ask questions and to do research prior to our meeting. It is their intent to handle the routine items expeditiously so they have time to address issues that are more serious. With that, is there any items that we need to pull? May I please get a motion?
Move to approve consent calendar.
I'll second.
I have a motion by trustee Garrison and a second by trustee Candelaria Orr for consent calendar. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is absent. Association reports, California School Employees Association, Chapter 170. Thank you. There is no report. Thank you. J2, Teachers Association of Cloverdale. No report. Thank you. School reports, Jefferson Elementary School.
Good evening. I wanted to apologize for my late submission of board report, but we did get in International Walk and Roll and our fabulous carnival. So other than that, as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. K2, Washington School Report.
Good evening. You have my report as submitted, and one thing I can add is that the landscaping that is going on outside of Washington looks really good. So I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cloverdale High School, JH Continuation School.
You have my report as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Special Education and Student Services Report.
You also have my report as submitted.
Thank you.
Thank you. Educational Services has no report. Maintenance, Operation, and Transportation report. I believe that's as submitted. All right. And board reports. I
That's
will
me.
start off with our trustee, Trustee Lopez White.
We did have a Measure H meeting where we were at the Washington site, and it was quick and easy. And I also attended a SARB meeting, which our SARB committee is always very productive. And what I will say about our SARB committee is that we work really well with the students and the families that come. And I think our team is a really good team. We have Nicole that does a really good job getting everyone there and organizing it and running it. And then another really great asset, I think, is our SRO that sits in with us, Rick Rhodes. I think he's a great addition to the team and a lot of benefit for our school, so and the students. So that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Trustee Addison.
I also went to the Measure H meeting, and it's nice to see the turnout pretty much done and the landscaping happening there in front of the school. And we had a CARE board meeting last night. A number of requests for funding from CARE were approved, and CARE also had a booth at the Rotary Tour de Vine where they gave out goodies to the bicycle riders and raised a little money for CARE. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Garrison.
I did attend a boosters meeting. I don't have anything really to report on that. I did not attend the CARE meeting last night, but I did participate in the rest stop that they did, and it was really fun, and everyone was really thankful for us being there and providing the food. Several of the funny comments were, this is the only bike race that they actually gain weight when on a bike ride because there's so much food and it's so good. And that is all I have for right now.
And I would just add to the CARE thing in the Tour de Vine, we had a lot of student participation as well. Both on Friday night helping CARE prep food for their booth, and on Saturday during the event we had kids showing up at 6 in the morning to help. So I think just about any kid that wants to could get their community service hours wrapped up in a weekend if they help with that event every year.
Thank you. Trustee Candelaria Orr.
So my role has been at Jefferson. Oh, is it off? Oh.
Dang it. Well, I am loud though, so that's okay. No, I've gotten to attend a couple of activities through Jefferson Elementary. I went to the walk and roll, had a fantastic time. My kid was the slowest one, so that was funny to try and get her to kind of move her hiney a little bit more. But it was lovely, and it was nice to see all the families out and everything. And then the other thing was attending the carnival last Friday, did the cakewalk. Everyone was absolutely fantastic, and we ended up winning a cake. So it was great. It was a lot of fun, so it was wonderful. But that's it.
Thank you. I have been reading the Anxious Generation book. I'm almost finished, but I have been working on reading that. And that's all I have to report at this time. Student Board Rep, welcome, Hannah. Would you like to provide us with a report? I know it's your first board meeting. Welcome. But if you would like to provide us with a report about something.
I don't really have
Just share what's going on with the high school.
club fair. Oh, there was a club fair last week where clubs around the high school, new ones especially that have been created this year, were presented, and students from all the grades got to go and check out the new clubs. I signed up for the dance club, so that was fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to superintendent report.
Yeah, I just have a couple of correspondence letters in my report that were in the board packet. The, one of them dealing with the budget will be, I'm going to elaborate on that when we get to the action item. And then the other one is just the one that they send, hopefully they send every year, that just says to approve the LCAP meeting, or the LCAP that we turned in.
Thank you. Measure H update.
That also is as submitted. Basically, the only update we have to that is just what was mentioned earlier with the other part, and then we'll talk about the, on Q2s, and we'll talk about Jefferson.
All right, if anybody has public comment on Measure H update, just go to the podium. Okay, moving on to Early Education Facilities Project update.
Yeah, so our TK and K classrooms, basically they've been DSA approved, and now they are basically in the next queue, which is in CDE, California Department of Education. And then once they are through with their check, as it were, and then once that's done, then we're looking at about 6 to 8 weeks out that we're supposed to get funded from that. So cleared one hurdle, and now we're on to the next one.
All right, thank you. If there's any public comment, just come up to the podium. No? Okay, thank you. Moving on to South Cloverdale property.
There's no report after the goats.
I can add one thing, which is that I talked to Mayor Lands about a trail project that the county is funding, and they might consider continuing that across the property. It's going to be up in the hills, and it could make a great cross-country trail for our students as well. So there's some opportunities to partner with the city and the county.
Okay, thank you. If you have public comment on this item, please stand next to the podium. No? Okay. And our music program.
Yeah, so at our last board meeting, we had a couple community members speak about potentially reestablishing a district music program, and so the board had requested to bring it back to the next board meeting. So we just put it on here to maybe to get some guidance from the board or direction you would like us to look at, or maybe even talk about what we've done in the past or kind of what we're thinking about, and then we can start looking into things that we're interested in.
Would it be, could we know, sorry, what type of music? I know there's little bit of music going on at every site to an extent, but I think it would be helpful to know exactly what is happening at every site. And then from there, then we'll know how or where, what avenue to look at to elaborate.
Would anybody like to speak to what they got going on at their different sites? Anything to do with art or music?
Nothing.
Well, I have art, but
Yeah, not music.
We have our
Podium.
you need to come up to the podium, ma'am. Yeah.
It's okay.
I know that
Well, there was,
the high school used to have a program, and we did at the
And we have a bunch of instruments.
And we
yes,
did at
have.
the middle school because my son participated in a 0 period band class where he went at 7 a.m. And there used to be stuff at Jefferson, but we had to cut that program at the high school, specifically in Washington, due to budget cuts.
Would it,
Well, at Washington, and evidently the high school as well, we do have art, but we do not have music. I know that one of our rooms, everyone calls the band room, but we definitely don't have band, and that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Michelle, do you have anything?
We incorporate music into our classrooms. We have subscriptions for our younger grades that do music with something called Heidi Songs, which is academically woven into music every morning. We are not looking at any after-school programs right now because of the budget, but last year we did have a guitar class, which we'd like to continue if any money happens to show up. And then we are also thinking about utilizing some of our Prop 28 money for an early childhood or an early learning program that really integrates the foundations of literacy through rhythm, movement, rhythmic word phrases, things like that. So that's it.
And we do have several instruments. I know we have over where Luis's office is, there's several instruments over there, and I believe apparently there used to be at one point in time, we had a robust music program. However, since I've been here, it hasn't happened. And we haven't had it, I should say. And so the Prop 28 she's referring to is a music and art grant, basically, right? So we had gone the art route to be able to do that. Anyway, that's about all that I have on that part.
We also do participate with the Luther Burbank Center for the mariachi camp.
Thank you for, I was just going to mention that, that I lost my thought when she left the podium. Yes, we do have the mariachi camp in after school in the summer, excuse me, that runs, and I believe that also has the folklorico which is a musical part to that. This next summer, we've worked with Luther Burbank Center, and I let them know that we're really not going to be able to do any sort of a financial, but they do have some grants that are going to still provide, not the folklorico part, but they're going to provide the mariachi portion of that. So yes, they do have that. And I believe that consists of 3 instruments, am I right on that? I think it's the guitar and the violin and trumpet. Trumpet. Not the guitar? Guitar also, right?
Yes.
Yes, and the trumpet, got you.
And then,
So yes, we have that part also.
didn't we somebody came to us, a student, to ask if they could do a club, a music club?
Yeah, that was what I was
And
going to ask. I
don't
do
know what had
remember that in
happened
the
with
last
that,
few years.
But we said, yeah, you can create a music club. I don't remember.
What age group was it?
It was
High
high
school.
school.
Like, yeah, last
I want to say
year
it was
or
like 2 years
years
ago,
ago.
so I'm not sure if that continued on or what had happened
we still
with
may have
that.
Somebody coming to the podium here, so maybe he knows.
And I'd add with the mariachi program and with small programs, like were mentioned at the elementary school for guitar, CARE would be a great funding partner for some of those smaller music programs.
So at the club fair, we had a table just for ASB saying, hey, do you want to make a club? All we need is 5 students and an advisor, and anyone can have any kind of club. Another way we could potentially do this is Boys and Girls Club, funding that at the high school through after school programs. So Boys and Girls Club is still at Cloverdale High School because we have the grant for the next 4 years, doing tutoring after school, and they do Chef's Club, and our new social emotional counselor is doing a crafts club, and so they're looking for people to do things after school. So I mean, I've emailed out my staff a couple times like, hey, does anyone want to start a club? Like, you can start a club and get paid, and Boys and Girls Club will pay you. And so if there's interest, we could get someone to come after school and run a music club.
Do they have to be a teacher at the school? Because the 2 presenters that came and spoke said that they would be interested in helping. So if they wanted to be the advisor for that club?
Yeah, that's something that they could do. Like last year for Chef's Club, we didn't have a certificated staff doing it because it was after school, and we had a robotics club, and that was somebody that Boys and Girls Club found and recruited to come up. So that is definitely a possibility.
Okay.
Are you suggesting maybe reaching out to them to see if they might be interested? Okay.
Yeah. What can I ask? Can we do a survey across the sites to see if we were able to provide a club at the middle school and the high school or wherever, how many students would be interested in doing it, so we could give, like, if we were to reach out to those people, give them an expectation of
Yeah.
have some interest. This
so-
is maybe how much.
Jason from the Boys and Girls Club, he just hired someone to be the new Kat Ryan. Kat worked with a lot of the Boys and Girls Club stuff last year, and now she's freelancing. And so they just hired somebody to take on the grant for running programs and being the go-to person for Cloverdale High School students. And so she just got hired, or they're going through the process of hiring, I think last week. So she should be coming on board next week, maybe the following week. And that's a perfect thing for her to take on, because Jason, who runs Sonoma County and Marin, is kind of taking it on in the interim, but he's more of a director level. So, yeah, that would be a perfect thing for a new person to do.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, we've certainly got some good direction to go here. I think would be good, yeah.
we've
clearly
already
have
had
the
to make
instruments.
cuts for them, so
Right.
it doesn't seem like we'll be able to add it back, but if there's ways that we can
Right.
bring it back in small doses
Yeah.
with volunteers or,
It's better than
Girls
nothing.
Club, it's better than nothing
Yeah.
at this time.
Okay, good.
Okay, if there's any, did I already say public comment?
No.
Okay, you can step up to the podium. Alright. I'm not seeing any. Moving on to discussion action R1, consideration and acceptance of donations. So here, we would like to publicly acknowledge all of our donors. Cindy Osterman donated various art supplies and frames with estimated value of $1,000 to the Cloverdale High School. Parker L. Don Revocable Trust via Gary Whitaker, thank you, donated $1,203.34 to the Cloverdale High School Cross Country Program. Kiwanis Club of Cloverdale donated $300 to the Cloverdale High School Volleyball Program. The Steed family donated $1,000 to Washington School Softball Program. Kiwanis Club of Cloverdale donated $500 to the Washington School Softball Program. And Loretta House donated $150 to Washington School Science Room 20. So thank you so much for your donations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Move to approve.
So I have a
Donations.
motion by trustee Lopez White,
I'll second.
a second by trustee Garrison for consideration and acceptance of donations. Preferential,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one's absent. R2, receive input on the Cloverdale Unified School District initial proposal for contract negotiations with the California School Employees Association, Chapter 170 for the 2024-2025 school year. Does any,
Public input. Yeah.
if anybody has input, please step forward to the podium. Okay, thank you. Moving on to R3, consideration and possible approval of the 24-25 budget update.
Yeah, and I would just say before Christy gets started is that if you noticed in the letter that we got from the Sonoma County Office of Ed, they had two requirements in the second page and corrections in order to approve our district, our budget. And the first one was the submission of the board approved unaudited actuals, which we did at the last board meeting. And then the second piece of that is what we're talking about tonight, which is the providing budget updates that address the budget concerns that show the reductions are affordable and reasonable with the focus on enrollment, ADA, and staff projections. So this is kind of the second piece to that letter, that if we have confidence that once we do this, then this is going to change this letter into being an approval. So this is kind of a two-step process. So.
Okay. All right, so here we have the 24-25 budget October update. And we're going to start off with the general fund budget comparison. This is taking unrestricted and restricted together. And the difference for the revenues for this year, in unrestricted, there was a decrease in the LCFF of about $104,700. This was due to a slight decrease in the unduplicated count projections. There was an increase into our transportation funding, and there was a restatement of the fair market value for the general fund. In restricted, we had an increase in Title I funds, and we had various reductions and additions in one-time funding. Then we also had an increase to the CTEIG, which is the Career Technical Education Grant, and to the SWP, which is the School Workforce Program. Those were also increases to both of those programs. And we also had an increase to our Medi-Cal fund, which is the Resource 9130. And so that's what accounted for the $561,674 increase. Then for expenses, there was a variety of things that happened here. We took the salaries and the benefits and then we updated them to reflect the actual estimated actuals. One of the things that Escape does, which is our financial software with the county, that is really, really cool, is that after the first payroll cycle runs, it takes all of the salaries and benefits and it projects them out for the entire year. So it encumbers those funds ahead of time, which is probably my only favorite feature about this program, but it's really cool. So we were able to then update all the salaries and benefits with the estimated actuals. Summer school for 23-24, so that was the July payroll, was added, as well as substitutes and extra duty assignments that are reoccurring were also added to the budget. Certificated retiree incentive was also added into the budget. This is second part of a 2-year agreement that the district has with certificated staff. So that was added into the budget as well. So that's what accounts for the increase in the expenses. For contributions, the district makes 2 contributions within the general fund. One of them is a contribution made to the routine restricted maintenance account, and that's required because of our participation and receipt of state funding for our modernization projects. They require us to put 3% aside. And the other contribution is for special education, because special education, as everybody knows, is woefully underfunded. The routine restricted maintenance account was not increased, but may need to be at the time that we do first interim, which will be the next budget report that we do, in order to be able to pass the criteria and standards. So we'll be watching that very closely. Special education did go up, and let's see. Oh, good. Okay. It did go up. The contribution increased by $358,310, and it was updated based on the current student need and pending contracts that we currently have. About $310,000 was an increase due to non-public schools, and the other was an increase into SCO special ed that we had to do. So this increase then compounds the increase for the minimum reserve, and that caused us to fall short of the 3% minimum reserve by $233,475. So the reserve that's presented in this budget is 2.04%.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the increased special education, the 358, is that for one student or for multiple students?
Multiple students.
Okay. But one student could cost us that much?
I suppose that's entirely possible depending on their placement.
Okay.
But this is multiple students.
Okay.
Don't we spend $3 million? I think we spend $3 million on special ed a year, and we have 17 students that are covered by that $3 million, so it's definitely more than that per student.
But we only have 17 that are out. 3 million is the entire special ed part, so it's not just those 17 kids.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our
But
entire special ed.
It's more
budget.
like the October one shows almost 4 million, really, when it gets to that. But yeah, but that's the entire special ed part, not just the 17 kids.
Okay, and then at the last board meeting, we were asked for the 8 years of deposit history for funds 14 and 17. And so this is the history, and you can see that for, I don't know, that's really strange.
You maybe go forward and go back and maybe go.
Okay, go forward, go back.
Ah, there it is.
Okay, that looks better. Love technology. Okay, so as you can see, this year for the 24-25 year, we are only making the one $75,000 contribution to the deferred maintenance fund, and the other ones are not being made. And then you can also note on here that in 2021, none of the contributions were made to any of these funds. And the current balance for Fund 14 as of today was $924,136. And the Fund 17 total for as of today is $374,377.49. Because we got to get those cents in there. Any questions about the Fund 14 and 17?
how are we gonna pay to replace the track and field in 6 more years if we don't save for it?
It's a great question. I agree.
Well, I'm asking, you're our budget officer, so how are we going to do that? What's the plan?
Well,
When we
we're gonna
stop
have to come
saving.
up with a plan to figure out how we're gonna do that. And by that, we're going to need to figure out within our next budgeting cycle, how we're gonna have to make accountability for that, to be able to do that.
So the board had a plan, that's why the board set this up. That's why the board has an additional mandated reserve in our board policy.
Correct.
So when we're not following that board policy, we're not saving for the future for these things. So we
Yeah.
put that board policy because we had a strategy, because we knew these expenses are coming up.
So we're gonna have to cut in other areas in order to meet.
Yeah, so
That's
now
correct.
we've, without board approval, we've stopped that strategy.
That's not entirely accurate, because we did talk about this when we did have board approval, when we were talking about the budget in June. And we did talk about the fact that we're not making those adjustments. And if the board wanted to decide to make those adjustments, then we would have had to do that. And that's why we held off on a few of the expenses to be able to do that. But we were pretty clear on that we weren't going to be able to make that. And so, but I also understand that we need to make up for that. And we're going to have to make that decision collectively to get there.
Well, I'd also like to ask, why wasn't there anything put aside for 2020 and 2021? Was it COVID
didn't-
dollar, or what was the decision behind that? Does anybody know?
I talked to.
I know we're all.
Well, I will say just my history, I came on the board in 2020, 2021 school year, and then we put those board-approved
Yeah.
things, sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what we're calling it right now, after I came onto the board. So we wouldn't have had that at the 2020, 2021.
Yeah, so as far
Not
as
for,
the
like, the track and
field, the
field
track
and
and
then-
field was just started then.
Okay.
So it didn't exist prior to that. We hadn't built it, so we didn't need to save for the known replacement costs. As far as the other ones, I don't remember why. But the track and field was put on about 4 years ago as something that we need to save for.
Agreed. And I would say that that's a discussion that we're going to be ongoing, having to figure out how we're going to make that, or make up that payment if the board so chooses to do that.
Okay. Okay. Also at the last board meeting, we discussed the 24-25 athletic budget and what the district, this is only the district contribution, so this does not include donations, it doesn't include the boosters and things like that. So for Washington, the total is $49,916, and for the high school, it's $176,448, for a total of $226,364. This has not changed from the June adoption. This is what was in your approval for the June. And this aligns with what was spent in prior year from the general fund for this, for the athletic budget. Okay, so,
We did that thing again where you might have to go forward, backward.
okay, thank you. All right, SCO has, as you know, SCO has conditionally approved our budget based on their assessment, and we need to do some things and redo our funding formula and enrollment and average daily attendance projections and unrestricted expenditure projections. This October update does all of those things, and so we're asking for the board to approve that.
And what we should be expecting from that is when we get, if this gets passed, we then send it on to them, and then we're expecting a new letter that would come in that would go into the November, if we get it, depending on when we get it back, it would go into the November board packet to let everybody know that those conditions have been met.
So what were the exact changes that were made prior to this letter, that were made to this to make it pass?
Do you mean after what changes
So
are
didn't
we
we,
making
they
after we
reviewed a
got the letter?
budget and said it doesn't meet it.
Correct.
So what changes are made to that budget to make it meet it
Okay.
specifically?
You want to talk to that?
Well, that's kind of what I talked about before with the unrestricted was decreased by $104,700, and that was due to a slight decrease in the unduplicated count. There was an increase to the transportation.
Can you repeat that? Where are we in our chart here?
On the one that you gave us in the packet, maybe?
Or on the screen, if you want to turn to it.
Okay, well, if you actually go to your,
I think the public would like to see it on the screen, probably, too.
I don't know that we have the,
Okay.
what's in the packet on this.
I don't. So,
So in the past, we've had very clear presentations on the screen, so we can follow what's going on. And I feel like not meeting the board policy, not saving for the future is a shell game, and this feels the same way. So I need to be very clear on what changes were made.
Okay, so in the unrestricted revenue, there, the unduplicated count.
I got 30 lines to find that on.
So on the, where it says revenues, October 2024, that $21,932.804 is the total between the combined amount. And then, the specific changes that were made where it was the LCFF funding was dropped $104,700. And that was due to a decrease in the unduplicated count. Hopefully we'll get new information after the Fall 1 is certified with CalPads.
So that's based on an updated enrollment then?
Updated enrollment and ADA.
Okay.
There was a change of $73,598 for the transportation plan.
And what's that a result of?
The state gave us more money.
Okay.
For local revenues, there was an adjustment to the account for fair market value of $57,415. For certificated salaries, there were several different adjustments. Teacher salaries were increased to $264,714. The extra hire was reduced by $58,440. Certificated pupil support salaries was increased by $147,462. Certificated and administrative salaries was increased by $14,145. Classified salaries were increased $16,514 for instructional aides. Instructional aides extra hire additional duty was increased $1,640. Classified support salaries was reduced $1,158. Classified support salaries for extra hire, subs, and additional hire was increased $210. Those were all the changes to classified salaries in unrestricted. For benefits and the employer-paid costs, there was a reduction of $35,778. And that was due to the fact that what was projected in June was higher for workers' comp than what actually came in. The rate for workers' comp is 2.36%. So for materials and supplies, the unrestricted was reduced $70,524. Materials and supplies were reduced in the supplemental concentration funds resource 0400. And that's because the supplemental concentration funds was overstated by $274,000. So that was some of the money that needed to be reduced out of there. Operating expenditures were reduced also in 0400 and increased for electricity, water, and waste disposal. There were also adjustments in unrestricted lottery for a difference of an increase of $49,699.
So without having that here in writing, I can't necessarily follow it all. But just, so when I'm looking at this report, I look over at the totals column on the far right. So is this letter based on what was submitted in June, that budget?
Yes.
So in that budget, we were at a negative 1.5 million. Is that correct?
Well, our, excuse me, our revenues minus our expenditures, we were deficit spending by 1.5 million, yes. But that was also, we're going to have some one-time funds in there that would cover that. But yes, that's correct.
And then, what's the REU at the bottom?
Reserve for economic uncertainties.
Okay, so they said we didn't meet the reserve of 3%.
Correct.
But when I look at the June budget line, the reserve is 3% at the bottom. When I go to the October update, now we've gone from 1.5 million deficit to 2.4 million deficit, which I think is looking worse. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that a worse number?
Mm-hmm.
So worse than the unmet. And now we have a reserve of 2.04. So how does this budget address the concerns of not having a 3% reserve? If now the new budget is worse.
It doesn't make the 3% reserve. The county wanted us to really go do a deep dive on the budget and make sure that we had everything budgeted that we should. And when you do that, you only come up with a 2.04% budget reserve.
Okay, so the actuals are, we're $1 million worse than June's projections. Is that true?
Yes, but I think that when you're looking at the 2.4 million, you're looking also at a lot of one-time dollars that are still being, that were still spent down at the beginning of this year. And
Okay,
so-
let's just look at the reserve percentage then. We went down 1%. So we went from a 3% reserve to now we only have a 2% reserve.
Yes,
So is that worse?
yes.
So I thought the point of the budget revision was to get our budget in line with the requirements in this letter,
It is.
but we didn't.
No, we did. We met the letter of the law. We met the letter that it said there.
Because they're saying to provide the budget updates that address the budget concerns is what she's talking about. So we had to update those to get the accurate, more accurate numbers. There were some things that were overstated that we needed to fix in our budget to make it more accurate once the unaudited actuals came in.
But it says the county review to ensure that the 3% minimum is met, and now we're only at a 2%. So-
Correct, I understand that, and I get that. I understand that, but the first process for us to do is to get these numbers up to date so that they can go back and verify that it's accurate data.
And then what we have to do is then
And
make
then
cuts
those decisions.
Then we
to,
gotta make correct.
we have to
This
make
is
the
beginning part
decisions
of
to
the
make
process.
cuts in order to meet that 3%. So it's, I think it's in stages. So they met, is that correct? So we see this because when I looked at this, I was like, we were at 3%, great. But now we're not even, we're at 2, which means that we're not meeting the board-approved additional 7%, let alone the state 3%. That's concerning to me. But we're doing what they asked, and therefore this leads us into the next step of having to make some hard cuts in order to have the money to put in those special funds, in order to meet board policy, in order to meet the 3%, in order to make sure that we have money to just pay salaries that we have, because what we have right now will not cover even a month
Right.
of salaries. So,
So I misunderstood. I thought we were trying to make changes to our budget to meet the 3% minimum. That's what I thought I heard.
Right. Do you want-
Not that we're just updating the budget.
What the county told us was that they wanted a budget that accurately reflects the estimated actuals.
And then, as Jackie was saying, the next steps will be to then identify where we can get to that 3% for that part. So, yes. So, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I get that. But what they're asking us to do to approve the budget is to get, they don't want to approve it right now because there's some inaccuracies in the actuals that are in there. So they want to make sure that those are shored up first to then figure out how are we going to, what do we need to cut or change in the middle of the year to be able to make at least the 3%. And I would also say that the 686, 695 that's under there was the 3%, but the new 3% amount is more of the
730,000.
730. So even though, so we're down to 2% by the 730, not by the 686. And then so our next charge will be then to figure out how to get us to that 3% minimum part.
Okay, because just to clarify what I was reading is it said requirements from the county, and that is to ensure we meet the 3% minimum. But I didn't realize this is a two-part process where we are doing part one of the process, which is to update the picture,
We're doing number
which
two.
unfortunately is
Number
much worse than
two
we expected.
first, and then we'll go back to number one.
Okay.
And to address your comment on the shell game thing, I don't know that that's fair or accurate. I would just say that the staff has been working tremendously hard to be able to make the transition, number one, to her new job, as well as trying to figure out exactly what was, what truly happened. And so the fact that we're bringing this to you and the fact that we've been in contact with SCO on this whole thing is really, and us putting this letter and having this discussion here and making these corrections quickly is trying to be transparent. And I just don't think that's a fair comment. And I think that people are doing the best that we can with what information that we're given. And it feels a little pointed, and I don't think that's fair.
Well,
But I
it's
would
my
say that-
it's my job to do a deep look at budgets. That's part of my job, and it's got to be presented clearer. It's got to be presented more clear than this. I've been doing this for 8 years. This is the most unclear presentation I've ever seen. It's very hard to follow.
Then I would love to get some feedback from that so we can clear that up.
I can do that.
Perfect. So I would just say that I think what's really important is that this is going to be some big work that's coming up this year. That we've talked about this since last May, as far as this is coming. I would also say that we are not alone in this. We are, a lot of districts are experiencing what we're experiencing. I know, for example, Santa Rosa City Schools is having to cut $25 million from their budget. So this is the cliff that we've been talking about for a while. And it's hit us, and I feel like we're getting ahead of it to be able to do that. And I think that there's going to be a lot of work that we're going to have to do and some hard decisions that are going to need to be made. And just hang in there and buckle up, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. So, but I think all these discussions are great, and it would be really helpful to get information, because both of us now are fairly new. So we don't have a lot of the history for this district and what you guys need and how you guys would like it. So any kind of feedback is great. But understand that we're doing the best that we possibly can to present the information to you guys and really to everybody. We've been having these conversations with everybody for that. And so...
So I'd like to start with one thing that we always had, was it never had to be a special ask to see the special funds. Those were always presented. What went in for deferred maintenance, what went in for the track, what went in for furniture. All those categories were always presented in every budget presentation. It never was a special ask. And the 8% reserve was always on here as well. That is a board policy, so it shouldn't just be showing, there's 7, yeah, it shouldn't just be showing the state mandated reserve. It should also have our board mandated reserve on every budget presentation. That's why I say it's a shell game, that's a board policy, and it should be here highlighted just like the state reserve. I know it's 0. I know we're not meeting board policy, But instead of putting it as a 0 on there for everybody to realize how bad the situation is, it just disappeared.
It didn't disappear, number one, and it's not 0. It has actually been met, but it's only being met by restricted funds, which is what was carried, which was how it was dealt with the previous year that I was here. So we had kept that the way that it was. But we can certainly add it to it. It's not a shell game. What it is it's us trying to report exactly what's going on and what we're trying to do with what the county's asking us to do. So we'll put as much information as we want on there. We're also trying to figure out, there's a lot of minutia in the budget, right? And so trying to figure out what is relevant and what we can explain is a tough thing to come up with. It is really a difficult thing to come up with. We spent the better part of a month trying to figure out what we're going to do here and what we're going to present. And so it is, we can certainly present it in minutia, and we can certainly do that, but it would be helpful to get that feedback like we're getting now, but also understand that there's a lot of information. And that part of the other 7% was not what we were asked to do by SCO to just get us out of this piece that we have right here. But that was presented at the June adoption of the budget.
One of the other challenges too is that this is not in state forms. You're used to getting everything from SACs and all of the state forms and things, and that was not an option for us at this time because first interim isn't even open yet. And the county also would not roll any of the 97, 91s, which was the beginning balances, so we had to work without all of those as well. So this was a challenge to try to bring this, and so it does look very different.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any public comment on item R3? You may stand next to the podium. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or discussion?
I think it's gonna be some hard cuts that we're gonna have to make. That obviously we've been talking about, and like Superintendent Sinistraro said, we're coming up to that cliff, and we can see it, and we can't slow down, and we're just gonna have to.
One thing I would add too, and I don't know if this is pertinent or not, but I know that Sarah Lampenfeld and Craig, I can never say his name, sorry, are more than happy to come and speak too. So I don't know if that would be something good that might be to have for November. They're more than welcome to kind of talk about their letter and everything like that too. So I just let them know that I would ask you guys that. So if that's something you guys would like to have in November, we can certainly do that. I know that Kristen and I talked about that as well.
Medici.
I think it's a Medici, I want to say. I think it's right.
It's Medici, but it's okay. You can say Medici. It doesn't matter.
Sorry.
Is that something that we would like to provide him direction on, or?
No, I mean, I think, I don't know, when we know more of what the next things that are presented to us and what questions we might have, maybe, but I would hate to have them come up here for it to be an item and then there's no questions or anything and then they just showed up.
I agree.
Right.
So-
And really what we're going to be doing, and I don't want to put words in Krista's mouth, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to take these two items that they wanted, give it to them, and then they're going to relook at it and reissue us letter, I guess, for the better, and then kind of give us some more guidance as far as what their guidance is, and then we'll as a board take that and figure out what we're going to do to go forward, that we need to do that, which like we're doing today with this letter. So that's kind of what I'm feeling like is this is new territory for me too. But I'm kind of feeling like that's what the process is we're going to follow. So I guess maybe if the letter comes out for the next steps, if there's confusion there, we might be able. That might be a good time to be able to bring them in as far as what they're asking for. So good.
I think we need to have the sites, so that they're included, but look at the budget of what they have and see where they possibly could, you know, I know we always want to add more, but unfortunately we're going to have to cut. So what is, you know, places that sites can cut, and then same with like the district office and all those different areas of where we can make those budget cuts. Have you look at it and then bring that to us and have us look at it. We need to start doing that, because the sooner we do it, we'll be prepared
It's already
instead of doing
started.
it already at last minute.
That's already started as far as just at the district level, but we're gonna start working that its way down, because we wanna have these discussions, and again, this is kind of the first part, right? We wanna have these discussions so everybody understands what's coming on, what's going on, everything like that too, for that part. It's just that really until this point in time, we didn't have concrete stuff yet, right? I know that kind of sounds weird, but, so it helps us a little bit more that we have a lot more, you know, information, accurate information.
And it's uncomfortable to talk about, but just so people understand, usually when you make cuts, it's programs, but programs are staff. And I don't want there to be confusion like, oh, well, we're building a new TKK wing. And people ask or question, why are we cutting programs, which is staff, when we're adding a new wing? But they need to understand where the funding is coming from. It's not the same pool of funding. And so the more we talk about it, then people can plan and understand it.
Yeah, it's like saying, we'll sell the south property and put that in the budget. Well, it wouldn't go in the budget, it's bond funds, and it would go right into construction, so you'd get another bathroom.
Right. I know. Sorry, I know, it is, and you're right, it's communication as far as that goes, yes. There's no doubt about it. And we're agreed, I think what you just said is perfect.
Okay.
Okay, well then, I'll make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 budget update.
I'll second.
So I have trustee Candelaria Orr motioned and trustee Lopez White second the approval of the 2024-2025 budget update. Preferential,
Aye.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is absent. Does anybody have any future agenda items that they would like to?
Did we still have a cell phone, or did we decide to take that off? I don't remember what we discussed last
We,
time.
well, I think Forrest did put his in
They're
his
in
report a
the
little bit, but we were
Yeah.
gonna kind of let it matriculate first,
Okay.
and then we're gonna bring it back in November, yes.
Okay, and then I just wanted to remind the president that I did have a standing first motion for adjournment.
I know, I'm letting you have it till November. I'll let you go out like that.
Okay, thank you, because I did ask and I was like, are we allowed, but thank you for reminding. Future board meeting dates, November 20th, is it really the 20th?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not today.
November's funky, it has like 5 weeks.
Thanksgiving is late this year.
Yeah, late.
Okay, sorry. Regular board meeting at 6 p.m. And then December 18th, and that meeting starts at 6 p.m., not 6:99 on here, but 6 p.m.
Isn't that 7:39?
Yes. 6 p.m. we start. With that, I have a motion by trustee Addison,
I'll second.
a second by trustee Candelaria Orr. Preferential?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And no one is